I worked as a professional foreigner in China, and the job is even stranger than it sounds. With billions of people on the planet, there's a job for everything. Face feelers and dog food testers, professional mourners, armpit smellers, the list is endless. Although I didn't sniff armpits for a living, my job title was just as strange. I worked as a professional foreigner. China's economy has grown massively over the years, and they are always looking for foreign investors. But they also want to attract non-nationals to work in their ever-growing tech industry, and that is where I come in. My job as a professional foreigner is to look like a foreign professional. I am foreign and a professional, but you can think of me as an actor. I get paid to attend board meetings for companies I don't work for. This is when the board meeting is showcasing their company to foreign investors, and I'm the token white guy that made it up the ladder in the company. I appear in a lot of corporate videos for different companies to smile while I sit by a computer and look like a productive member of the workforce. I get hired to go to corporate dinners and parties to make new foreigners feel comfortable when they are new to a company. The list of duties as a professional foreigner is endless. My tools consist of an empty briefcase, a laptop I use for checking my emails for job notifications, and a suit. I loved my job until my title as a professional foreigner started to get a bit extreme. China isn't known for high standards of ethics in the workforce, and for most Chinese and foreign workers, the work can be a miserable and grueling existence. Long hours and low pay can cause low morale within companies, which makes people less productive. For my next gig, I was hired to be an executive working high up for a tech company. When I arrived with my empty briefcase and laptop, they brought me to a large room which was filled with many Chinese and American workers that all looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. They brought me up onto a stage. At first, I thought I was going to give a motivational speech. As I stood there, the CEO of the company arrived on stage with two large-looking men. At first, they started shouting at me in Chinese, calling me lazy and stupid. I mean, the gig paid well, but when the large men pulled out sticks, I thought, I didn't sign up for this. They began beating me in front of a terrified crowd and were told this was going to happen to them if they didn't start meeting their quotas. After beating me relentlessly for 15 minutes, they fake fired me and dragged me off stage to add to the dramatics. I didn't doubt that the theatrics worked, but for me, it was a terrifying ordeal. For a moment, I genuinely thought they would beat me to death. A few days passed before I got an email for another job. The company was vague in its description, and all I had to go on was its name, Humane Biotech. When I arrived at the building, I had to check twice that I was at the right location. The run-down office block didn't scream tech and resembled more of a sweatshop. The first thing that hit me when I walked in the doors was the smell. It was a mix of chemicals with the staleness of rotten wood. I walked down a narrow, dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly. The walls lined with rows of cubicles packed with people hunched over computers. The room buzzed with the hum of machines and the low murmur of voices, but there was an eerie tension in the air. I finally reached a small office where a man in a wrinkled suit greeted me with a forced smile. He didn't look me in the eyes as he handed me a contract. I skimmed through it, but the terms were vague and the pay was unusually high. Something about this didn't feel right. I was shown to a glass-walled room overlooking the main work. My role, I was told, was to sit there and observe, with no interaction with the workers and no involvement in the operations. Just sit and be seen. As I sat there with my empty briefcase and powered-down laptop, I watched the workers below me. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes hollow. It became clear that they weren't just overworked, they were terrified. Now and then I noticed one of them glance up at me with a mix of hope and desperation. As I sat there, the man in the wrinkled suit came back and asked me to follow him. We walked up a flight of stairs to the second floor and past an office filled with ringing telephones that went unanswered. He brought me to another office and sat me down at a table and handed me a load of documents and a pen. "You sign these. You are a company executive," he demanded. Suddenly, two large men stepped into the room. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me when I recognized the two men as the ones who beat me relentlessly at my last gig. "If you want to get paid, you sign these now." One of the men pulled out a gun and pointed it at my head. All that was going through my head was the thought of getting out of there alive. So I signed whatever they wanted me to sign. When I was finished, the two men picked me up and dragged me from the office and up another flight of stairs to the third floor. Men in surgical gowns and face masks roamed a large room filled with surgical beds. When I realized what was happening, I tried to run, but the two men overpowered me. As I struggled for my life, a man with a camera asked one of the men to prop me up by one of the beds. He began taking pictures with me in the frame as a doctor removed the organs from someone strapped to the bed. They brought me from bed to bed, making sure to get a picture of me standing next to the unfortunate soul that was having their organs harvested. Each time it happened, I thought I was next. But when they were done, they brought me downstairs and told me I could go home. Back at my apartment, I was a trembling mess. I eventually gathered myself together enough to pick up the phone. Just as I was about to dial the police, someone started banging on my door. At first, I thought it was the people from the company coming to finish me off. I slowly opened my front door and fear turned to confusion as the people introduced themselves as detectives. When I asked them what they wanted, they pulled out a load of files. "Mr. Johnson, are you the chief executive at a firm called Humane Biotech?" he firmly asked. He then proceeded to pull out the pictures of me standing next to the doctors as they illegally removed people's organs. Can you come with us and answer a few questions?